Hey, me after editing here. So, Sega decided to do this really cool thing where they, had their preview event embargo end the day after I finished recording this video. So, a lot of the things I say in this video are completely outdated, debunked, that sort of thing. So, keep that in mind as you watch, and, I hope you enjoy. And man, this took way too long. Hey, so a little bit of backstory on this video. I might have already made it already. This video was initially supposed to come out when Frontiers was 4 weeks away. And you might not have been able to notice, but it's a little less than that now. And really, it was just the result of a lot of technical problems and a lot of things I didn't really understand with the editing software I'm using. But now, I think I have a better grip on it, and I have an idea of how to get around some of that. So, here we are, and I figured, it's been long enough, I may as well just try again, so it's a bit more topical, or a bit more, up-to-date with everything that's happened with this game. Because, at the time of this recording, last night, Frontiers went gold. The game's done now. And not only is that really cool and really exciting, it made some of the stuff I said in the last video, not really relevant anymore. And I wanted to take a look back at Sonic Frontiers now that we know that the game's pretty much done, and just reflect on it, I guess, because honestly, I think Frontiers has the potential to be my favorite Sonic game. And I'm not exaggerating, this isn't just me playing it up, or the hype getting to me. Maybe it is, I don't know. But legitimately, I think Frontiers could very well be one of my favorite games of all time. I love Sonic. I love this stupid rat so much. He's been there for me for a long time. I've been a Sonic fan since I was 4, so it's been a while. And I also just really love open world games. I love being able to explore a big world and being able to go out and just do stuff that seems fun, that fits the character or fits the world. And for Sonic to do that, that's a dream, So to have Frontiers here now and doing it in a way that I think is really interesting and really fun and really unique, it's just so cool, And I think for me, one of the biggest aspects of that makes it really exciting is the open zone. To say that there's really no game quite like Sonic Frontiers would probably be less of an overstatement than you'd think. Because, you can compare it to Breath of the Wild all you want. And, and there definitely are similarities, I won't deny that. But, to have, this platformer character in this big open world that not only, feels made for him, but also allows him to adapt to better fit that world, I think is really interesting. Because, there's a lot of, fan games that have open areas or more open levels that focus a lot on momentum and a lot on rolling down hills and stuff like that. GT, Utopia, that sort of thing. And I love those games, but I don't think it's a controversial opinion to say that I think those games work best as small little bite-sized experiences than a full 20-hour game. Because I'm not gonna go into the whole design ethos of those games or why they maybe don't work as well in a long-form experience, because that's not what this video is about, and I want to keep it brief. But essentially, I think those games and how much they're built around momentum and how much they're built around rolling down hills and going super fast all the time doesn't really work for an open world setting that's longer than an hour. So even with Utopia, people give Utopia oh, this is what open world Sonic should be, when Utopia isn't even open world, it's still linear. It's wide, it's open, but it's still go to point A to point B. And I know some people are disappointed by the lack of emphasis on momentum in the movement, and and that's understandable to an extent, I guess. But I think for the type of game Frontiers is being, I think it's sort of necessary in order for the game to even function properly. And momentum is there, we've seen it, it's there. Especially with the drop dash and stuff going down hills, it looks really satisfying. But I think going for a more sort of like blend of traditional like adventure or boost sort of gameplay in an open setting is really interesting and really unique. Like being able to run around and like interact with all these different gimmicks like rails and springs and dash pads and whatever just looks really cool and really fun and satisfying in a big open world. And I know people will complain about automation or whatever, and it's already sort of an argument that I disagree with because every 3D Sonic game has some form of automation. But I think you forget, if you're one of the people who thinks that, not saying that you are, but like if you are, it's an open world. It's an open zone. Just go around it. Like, for real, if you see a dash pad and you're like, I don't want to use it, then don't. That's the beauty of it, you know? And like, and it's not even talking about like the actual like content in the open zone with like all the different puzzles and enemies and stuff. And like, I think all of that looks really fun. Like, we've only really seen the puzzles on Chronos, and yeah, they look simple and they look kind of easy, but like they look fun. And I think for me that's the biggest thing, is like I don't really care if it's not hard, I just want it to be engaging and fun. And I think that's something the whole game really has to try really hard to stick to, because to me the worst thing that can happen with this game is that it just doesn't introduce enough new content consistently enough, or it sort of like sticks too much to its own formula and starts to get stale or boring. Because like, you don't want people 10 hours through your 20-hour game to just stop playing because the game stops being interesting or stops being fun. You have to keep tossing new stuff at the player all the time in order to keep the world feeling interesting. And this isn't something I think Frontiers will have a problem with. I think we've seen more than enough of Chronos and Ares and Chaos to see that there is a lot of new content consistently throughout the game, with at least with regards to enemies and stuff. We haven't seen a lot of puzzles or anything like that. But yeah, I think that stuff looks really fun, and I think exploring the world will be really cool and really satisfying, not only with all of Sonic's new or reinvented moves, but also with the stuff you actually do in it, like doing little platforming challenges or puzzles or fighting enemies. Which then, you know, leads us to combat. And this is one of the things that I didn't cover in my other video. I say that like you've seen it, although most of you definitely haven't, because I didn't upload it publicly. I'll just say you're not missing much. But when I recorded that video, that was before the Combat Showcase came out. That was like before we got the big overview trailer for Combat. Combat just looks really cool, I think. Like, I think a Sonic game with combat that really focuses on like feeling like Sonic and feeling natural for him, I guess, is really cool, because all the combat we've had previously in Sonic games is either really simple, like, oh, just press the homing attack and they're dead, or it revolves around some different character like the Werehog. And I'm not going to give my opinion on the Werehog, because Lord knows too many people have had too many opinions on the Werehog. So I'm just going to say, I think it's cool that we have combat in a Sonic game that's fast and fluid and really works with the character. And I think all the enemies look really cool too, not just in like their designs, but also in like their different utilities and different different stuff they can do. Because like, I think a big key to keeping combat interesting, especially when it seems as sort of like simple as it is, and I don't mean that in a bad way, is that you have to have enough enemies to keep combat like varied and fun, which it seems like the game has in like spades. Like, you have Shell on Chronos that has its weird little shell that you have to hit open with Psyloop or wait for it to throw out at you. Or you have like the guy on Ares that has you like do homing attacks up him to hit him. Or like stuff like that that keeps combat interesting and varied to where you never really know what you're going to get when you see a new enemy. And that's really fun because it encourages exploration to like see what other enemies there are and to like encounter each enemy in a different way. And it also extends to like bigger boss encounters that incorporate different mechanics like quick stepping or rail grinding that I think are just really neat, you know? Like, it makes it feel more Sonic-y, or gives the game more character, I guess. Overall, just like combat just looks fun, and I'm really excited to like experiment with it and see just what crazy stuff people come up with. Like, I'm not excited for Twitter when this game comes out. Like, I'm really not excited for Twitter when this game comes out. But I think one thing I am looking forward to is seeing people's crazy combo videos. I want Tower to get fricked up bad, and it's gonna be really fun. I guess the next thing to talk about would be like the story, I guess. And I think the story is really interesting. Like, I love Ian Flynn. I love his work to death. And I think having him write for the games is really great. Like, it's something I've wanted for a long time. Like, I know a lot of other people have too. And I think the tone that this game is going for, that's a bit more serious, is really interesting and really cool. And I don't want to be like the guy who says stuff like, oh, the stories in the 2010s games suck, or whatever. Like, I don't care. Whatever, dude. I'm not that type of guy, I guess. But I think a more serious, a story that takes itself a bit more seriously, especially for what this game is going for, makes a lot of sense and is a really good step in the right direction, I think. Like, I think Sonic can pretty much work with any sort of story tone. Like, I think he works with more serious stuff. I think he works with more cartoony or lighthearted stuff. Just due to the kind of character he is and how the series has built up its reputation, or like its sort of vibe, I guess. And I think this game's focus on mystery and like unraveling what happened to the Starfall Islands is really going to be fun to experience and fun to figure out. Because there's a lot of stuff in this game that we just don't know yet. And we don't really know how the story's going to play out. Like, we don't know what the Titans are, we don't know what Sage is, we don't know who used to live here on the Starfall Islands, and we don't know what happened to them. And I think a story that promises to answer those questions in a really interesting and really fun way is going to be really cool. And I think it's also going to help a lot with pushing players along, even if the game sort of starts to drag a little bit in terms of introducing new stuff to its gameplay, because you'll always have the story to keep going after. Like, okay, I still want to figure out what goes on in Starfall Islands or what happened to Sonic and his friends, even if I have to fight Ninja a fourth time. Not that I think that will happen, I just think that it's a good way to keep the player engaged. And I think it's also really different for an open world game. Not that this game is open world, because it's segmented off into 5 different areas. And I know they hate calling it open world, and I know I literally made a tweet about how I think calling this game open world is kind of stupid. What I'm trying to say is that I'm a hypocrite. Basically, a lot of open world games, and by a lot of open world games, I mean Breath of the Wild, try to have some pretty minimalistic stories, because having a plot involves the player hitting certain plot beats in a sequential order in order to make the story work, which sort of goes against some of the typical, like, ethoses of open world games, of giving you freedom to go wherever you want whenever, which means, oh, we can't have, like, a big overarching plot, because that will dictate where the player wants to go at any given time. So I think Frontiers having more of a focus on story is really different and really cool. And I think that's sort of the big thing that draws me and a lot of other people to Frontiers, is that it's different. Is that even though the game features a lot of the same stuff that we've seen in Sonic in the past, like, you know, familiar gimmicks, like, or familiar moves, it's still a new thing for Sonic, and it's still, like, something fun and unique that maybe people who don't like Sonic as much will get an interesting experience out of, because of how different it is. And I guess while we're talking about returning stuff for more traditional things in this newer context, cyberspace sure is a thing. To be honest, there's not a lot I can say about cyberspace, as already been said. like, yeah, I think it sucks that they're mostly reusing old themes, and it sucks that they're still, like, using, old layouts, too, which is kind of weird. They can justify it in the story all they want, and to be honest, I don't really care, or at least not as much as most other people do. For me, it's just that I just want it to be fun. Like, I think having it there not only is, like, a security blanket for people who are too resistant to change. So, like, oh, you might not be super into the open zone, but here you have these linear levels to play too, that are all your favorite stages, all your favorite zones, whatever. I think that's important to have, and it's also important to, you know, break up the gameplay of the more freeform open zone platforming and running around, and the combat with more linear and traditional gameplay. I've heard some people say the controls aren't great, like, Sonic's turn seems a little bit restrictive, but I guess that's something we'll really have to judge when the game comes out and we all get to play it. So, like most things, for me, I just want Cyberspace to be fun, and I think it looks fun, and I'll be playing as many stages as I can. A big worry I have for it, though, is that, we've only seen 4 themes so far, Green Hill, Sky Sanctuary, Chemical Plant, and the City, and, I really hope there's more than that. There probably will be, and this is probably a stupid thing to worry about, but I think it's weird that we've only seen 4 up until now, and it's the same 4 that we've seen for months, you know? But, whatever. That's all I really had to say about Cyberspace, to be honest. So, I guess to wrap up, and I say wrap up, and I'm gonna go on for another, like, 5 minutes anyway, to ensure that I say something of value, and not just like, oh, well, I think this is kinda neat, and that's the whole video. Sonic Frontiers is, to me at least, a game that's going to be really, really important for Sonic. Like, this is a whole big new thing for him, you know? And this is what Sonic's going to be defined by for the next decade or so, assuming everything goes to plan. And that's really exciting, you know? And I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what direction they take and where the story goes and that sort of thing. And I'm not expecting the game to be perfect. Like, there's some stuff that I'm not a super huge fan of. Like, I wish there was more platforming stuff that was better integrated in the world, or I wish that Sonic didn't, like, jank around so much when he's on, like, weird bumps in the ground. Like, you've seen the footage, you know. And if you haven't, then it's probably on screen right now. But to be honest, I think the good really, really, really outweighs the bad. And I think even more than that, this is a big opportunity to put Sonic back in the spotlight, you know? Because even though we've had a lot of different games and a lot of different styles, Sonic has always been sort of a series that's hard to get into for a lot of people, I find. Like a lot of people don't really care for the boost games or the adventure games for one reason or another, but I've seen a lot of people who aren't traditionally Sonic fans say that they're really interested in Frontiers, and that's really good. And there's also people who haven't enjoyed Sonic in a long time, or maybe don't like the direction the series has gone in more recent years, that are really excited for Frontiers. And I think that's really, really great, you know? That we can all be on the same page for once and look at a game and say, wow, this is really, really interesting and really fun. And I hope that that can extend to us actually playing the game too, because Sonic fan discourse on social media is so exhausting. You know, like, and if you're on Twitter, you know, you've seen it, it's every day, it's, like, I love it, but I hate it, and I think for once, it would be really, really nice for everyone just to, you know, come together and just enjoy the game for once, you know? Just to, like, look at it and enjoy it and play it, like, not to get in each other's throats about it, not to go and, like, say something stupid about it just for clout or whatever, even though that'll happen regardless, you know? I just want to have a fun time with the community that I love, because, like, there are some sides of the fan base that I really don't like, that I think are really, really annoying. But at the end of the day, I still love the community. Like, that's why I do stuff for Sonic Venture, because I want to, like, have a relationship with the community, and I want to give back. And I want to, like, make something that Sonic fans, or maybe people who aren't traditionally Sonic fans, will enjoy. And that's what I think that they're doing with Frontiers, too. And, like, I think that's really admirable. And not just that, that they're also just taking charge and saying, hey, this is the game we want to make. If you don't like it, that's fine. But we wanted to do something new, we wanted to do something fresh, and we wanted to get out of sort of a rut that we've had and do something new. And that's really great, because I think very few people would have been mad, per se, if they just made another regular boost game, or they had another 2D game that was pretty standard. Like I love Mania, but to say that it, like, reinvents the classic Sonic formula is, would be a lie. And I think if they did that, I think we all would have been fine with it, to be honest. Like obviously depending on the execution. But I think if they were just like, hey, here's another standard platformer, that's either 3D or 2D or whatever, I think most people probably would have been cool with it, assuming it was good. So, and that's another thing that I really appreciate about Frontiers, is that they're, you know, taking a risk and doing something different. It's a kind of a cliche in the community to say, like, oh, they have ambition, they have passion again. Like, they always had passion. They were always caring about the things that they made. It's just they never had the proper time to put into them. But regardless of that, that's a whole other conversation for a different day. Basically, what I've been trying to say this whole video, that I really want to get across real quick, because I don't want this video to be 23 minutes long. Specifically that number. Frontiers is so exciting to me. For a lot of reasons. Not just because I'm excited for the game because it's Sonic, but because I think it's a really big step for Sonic. And I think it's the first big step to getting him back in the spotlight and getting him back in good graces with the general gaming community. And obviously there's the chance that they'll maybe screw it up, or that the game might end up not being as good as the sums of its parts. And, you know, and if that happens, we'll deal with it when we come to it. But, I don't know. I just like Sonic. That's really it. Like, I just like Sonic, and I like talking about him. And I think Sonic's really, really cool. And I think this game looks really, really cool. And, yeah. If you watch this whole video, like, thank you. Thank you for listening to me ramble about nothing for 20 minutes. Like, most people wouldn't do that. And if maybe you liked me rambling and want to hear more rambling, maybe you could subscribe. Why am I saying that? That's stupid. That's something a YouTuber would say, and I just talked into a microphone for 20 minutes about a rat. There's a fine line between those things. Or maybe there's not. I don't know. Anyway, read The Promised Neverland. Okay, bye-bye.